some people initially, but very fast they found about this configuration. We were looking for a problem which would be simple to study and which would still be a flame. So you remember these equations I've shown you, they depend on x, y, z, and t. There's no way we can solve them. So we are looking for a simple case. The simple case that we're going to use here is the laminar premix flame. So what's the specificity of that? You consider, for example, a tube in which you put fresh gases here. Here we'll have a flame, and here you will have burn gases. Okay? We can show, and I'm going to do the demonstration for you actually, that we're going to have here a flame moving at a constant speed. The nice thing about this is that if this thing really exists, if we can have a flame moving at a constant speed in a 1D domain like this, we can set ourselves in the reference frame of the flame, and then we have a problem which does not depend on time, does not depend on y or on z. It depends only on x, the direction here of the flow. So by the way, it's going to be much more interesting for us to study. Now, at that point, I'm just going to open a parenthesis to say that there are two solutions to what I've drawn here, to the problem of is there a wave propagating at constant speed towards fresh mixture. This is premixed. This is burnt. There are two solutions for that. I'm not going to demonstrate that. You can find that also in textbooks. The first one is deflagration, and the second one is going to be detonation. In a deflagration, the speed of this thing is going to be of the order of 10 centimeters per second to maybe 10 meters per second maximum, and pressure will be constant. So if I plot here versus x the temperature profile, I'll have something like this. Temperature. And if I plot the pressure, I'll have something like this. It will be constant. So that's the first class of solution for this problem, deflagration. It's actually an interesting mathematical problem. You know, remember existence and unicity. Many of you have seen that when they were studying before coming here. We always worry about existence and unicity. For this problem, there's much more than one solution. There's one solution when nothing is burning. There's one solution when you have a deflagration. There's one solution when you have a detonation. All these states are solutions of the same equation. So what is a detonation? Well, a detonation, it's a shock wave plus a flame. P is not going to be a constant. There's going to be a big jump of pressure, and the speed of this thing is going to be more like 1,000 meters per second. So this is really what we call an explosion, okay? Most applications of that, I said that in the first course, are related to army problems or safety problems. We won't talk about them here. But the profiles here for a detonation, so this is deflagration. For detonation, you would have something like this for temperature too. But the pressure will also have something like this. Pressure, temperature. And here, as I said, this thing will go at a speed of the order of 1,000 meters per second. This thing will go at a speed of the order of 1 meter per second. Both can be studied. It's actually not very difficult to study detonation. It's just that in practice, if you're not going to work for the army, it's not so interesting. So we're going to concentrate on deflagration. Okay, second step. Now, equations. Well, you remember the equations we had before. We had, for example, continuity. d rho dt, the square of rho u equals 0. If we sit in the reference frame of the flame, the ddt goes away, and this thing becomes only d over dx of rho u equal 0, which we can solve right away. It means that rho u is going to be constant, and it's going to be equal to rho 1 SL. Let me define what is 1 here. 1 is going to be the state here. 1 is the state at the inlet. 2 is the state at the outlet. So at the inlet here, we have density rho 1, temperature T1, mass fraction YF1 for the fuel. And at the outlet, you have rho 2, T2, and the mass fraction of the fuel will be 0. There will be no fuel left there. The velocity here, U1, must be equal to SL. Why? Well, if you are in the reference frame of the flame, it means the gases have to come to the flame at the flame speed. Always the same story, if you're in a train or outside the train. If you're in the train, it's the track which is coming towards you at the speed of the train. It's the same for the flame. If you are sitting on the flame, you see the fresh gases arriving to you at the flame speed, and you blow them out behind you at a higher speed. But the inlet speed is U1 equal SL. This is why here, by the way, rho and U will change versus X, but the product remains equal to rho 1 SL. Momentum. Momentum is not needed at the moment. I will use it later to find the pressure. I will show you what it gives on the pressure, but basically the pressure is going to be constant. I don't need to care about momentum. So we need to care about the other guys, species. Well, species, we have d dt of rho yk plus gradient of rho u yk equal gradient of rho dk grad yk plus omega dot k. This is in general. If you do it in 1D in this problem, you are left with this term goes to 0. This one becomes d over dx of rho u yk equal d over dx of rho dk d over dx of yk plus omega dot k. And you still have n equations like this. K equal 1 to n. And we still need a temperature equation. So I'm going to write it here. It's not the most pleasant one. So it's rho Cp dt dt plus u grad T equal gradient of lambda grad T. And then we get these terms which I've called omega dot T prime. And then we get an unpleasant term which is due to diffusion sum of the rho Cp k yk vki. In 1D, same thing. It will simplify to something easier. The ddt goes away, and you are left with this equation. Rho Cp u dt dx equal d over dx of lambda dt dx. That's an easy one. The heat release, and this term, which is still there, dt dx, multiplied by the sum of rho Cpk yk vk. There's only one direction here. Now, this equation are simpler, but they are not simple. You cannot solve them like this, okay? Because you have one equation here. You have n equations here. And you have, of course, this one. You can put that in a code and just run the code and get the answer. That will work. I'm going to show you typical results for that. So this is a flame, a premix flame, where we mix hydrogen and oxygen. And then we ignite it, and we look at the flame front. When you want to do a computation like that, you use usually, today, very few people write their own codes. You can use 3 packages, at least 3 of them. There's a package called Chemkin. You have to pay for that one. There's another one called COSILAB. So this is European, this is American. And there is a freeware package called Cantera. If someone asks you to do these computations, don't write a code, get those codes. They do that very well. And this is the results you obtain. So this is an H2O2 premix flame. So here you get O2, the H2 profile. Here is the distance. And you have the typical profile, for example, of temperature. The cold, what we call the fresh gases temperature, is still high. It's about 700 K. You can see in the flame form the temperature goes up and it reaches the final state. In the first part of this course, we have computed this state here as a function of this one. Now what I'm showing you is how we go actually from one state to another. And as you can see, we do that in a very, very small distance here. It's a very thin flame form that we have. If you look at that here, from here to there, you get 50 micrometers. Okay? And so the reaction here takes place over 5 microns. So it really means that in an engine like this, the thickness of the flame front is going to be extremely small. Now, some things are even worse. If you look here at certain reactants like this guy here, H2O2, for example, or HO2, which are formed within the flame, they appear and then they disappear. You cannot take them away. They are the messengers. They take some reactions, bring them towards other species. If you would take them off, the reaction would stop. But still, they are. You can see, for example, a guy like this. They appear on 1 micron and then they go away. But you need to compute them if you want to get the right result. The structure of this flame, of course, is complicated. You can do that numerically. You cannot do it by hand. This is why I'm not going to stop here. I want to go to a point where I'm going to solve the equations completely and only by hand. Probably not finish that today, we'll finish that next time. So how do we do that? Well, we need to simplify these equations a little bit more, not much, but a little bit more. Let's clean up the place. I'm going to have to write a few more assumptions before I can solve this problem. So, let me write here these new assumptions. The first one, which is really the most useful, is to say that we have a single reaction. Fuel plus oxidizer goes to product. Of course, to do chemistry, I'm not going to solve by hand a problem in which I have n species. In practice, it's not such a wrong assumption. In many cases, you have one reaction which is really limiting. When is that? It's typically if you don't have a lot of fuel. For example, if you have a very lean flame, the most important thing to have combustion is to find fuel. When it's lean, you don't have a lot of fuel. So what's very important is to have fuel locally. So that's the second assumption I'm going to make here. I'm going to suppose that the flame is very lean and that the reaction rate depends only, omega dot depends only on the fuel, on YF. YO has no importance. Basically, there's enough oxygen everywhere. What is limiting in my combustion is not the fact that you find oxygen, it's the fact that you find fuel. So typically, I will write the reaction rate this way. Q, the reaction of my single reaction. So that's the progress rate of the single reaction. So I will write Q as an pre-exponential constant, a temperature with an activation temperature. And here I will have rho YF to the power 1 and rho YO WO to the power 0. I will just say there is no dependence on the oxygen. Everything depends on the fuel only. Then I want to use also Fick's law. But as I said before, that's not a big deal. In these equations here, I've already done it actually. So you see, I was away of my demonstration already. So I've already used Fick's law here. What else do I need? And I want to say that all the CPKs are equal to CP. So they do not depend on temperature. They do not even depend on the species. If we do that, the equations that you have here become simpler. So why do they become simpler? Well, the first thing is that we're going to be able to simplify this expression here for omega dot k. We're going to care only about the fuel. So we need to worry only, when I say worry, I should say solve, worry about Y fuel. The equation for the fuel is going to be d over dx. Rho u is going to go in front of it. You see that rho u is a constant. I get it out of this equation. Rho u dy f dx equal d over dx of rho d dy f dx plus omega dot f. So that's one equation. This one, we can say it's solved already because we have integrated. So we have one equation here, and we need an equation for temperature. It's going to be this one. So how does this thing look like? This is getting more exciting. Here we'll have rho u. It's always the same. It's a constant. It's rho 1 SL Cp dt dx equal d over dx of lambda dt dx plus these two guys. This thing here, if we say that all the CPKs are constant, the CPK get out of the sum, and we are left with sum of yk vk, which is nice because it's 0. It means basically that the diffusion term has no effect if all the species have the same enthalpy. So this term will go to 0, and we are left only with this guy. So you see now that instead of having a lot of equations, we have only two equations, two differential equations. This one for the species, and this one for the temperature. If we can solve these two equations, we're fine. The question is, can we? Let's look at this guy here. I don't have the definition here. Let me write this here. Omega dot t prime is minus sum of delta hfk 0 plus hsk omega dot k. You can split that in two, and you find minus sum of delta hfk 0 omega dot k. And here, the hsk here are integral of cpk t dt. So they're all the same. You can get them out of the sum, and so basically this term goes to 0 if cpk equal constant. So that means the heat release is just this form. Now, to finish that before noon, almost there. Yeah, 10 minutes. You see here that this thing is still complicated because it uses a lot of other species which I don't track. So I need to express it. So to do that, I need a little bit more space here. So I'm going to write the link between the reaction of the fuel and the heat release in a single step reaction. I've said that I had only one reaction here, which progresses at the rate Q. And Q is written here. So that means that the reaction of the fuel, omega dot fuel, is simply equal to nu F WF Q. You know, when we wrote these equations a few minutes ago, I had a lot of reactions. Now I only have one. So the fuel is only consumed by the single step reaction here. And then the heat release, omega dot T, is written like this. It's minus sum of the delta HFK0. And here is the same. Each weight, omega dot Q, can be written like this. Omega dot K here. Nice thing about that is that I can factorize Q out of this expression to write this as minus sum of delta HFK0 nu K WK Q. If I divide these two things, one by the other one, I find that omega dot T divided by omega dot fuel is equal to minus sum of delta HFK0 nu K WK divided by nu F WF. So there is a direct link between the reaction rate of the fuel and the heat release. It's because it's only one reaction, so of course, every time you burn 1 kilogram of fuel, you get directly the amount of joules which are released. And this number here is actually equal to minus Q, the one we have seen before. This is the heat of reaction. If you compare this expression for Q to the one we have defined 1 hour ago, you will see it's the same. Just have to go from molar to mass quantity, and it's the same expression. So what this really means is that if we come back to the equations here, the equation for temperature is going to be ρ1 SL d over dx of Cp temperature equal d over dx of lambda dt dx minus Q omega dot fuel. A little bit simpler, not yet there. One equation for the fuel, one equation for the temperature, and only one source term. If something burns here, then something happens here, some heat is produced, and at the same rate, with a factor Q between the two. Can we finish this problem? Well, you know, in general, it's better if you have two differential equations, it would be better to have only one. It happens that in combustion, we can show that in certain cases, this equation is actually the same. I need just one more assumption to do that. One simple assumption. By the way, this is all chapter 2. I'm just following the book for the moment, so you should not have difficulty finding your way. One more final assumption. Okay. Lewis number equal unity. Who is Lewis? Well, Lewis for us is only the ratio of the thermal diffusivity to the fuel diffusivity. In most cases, fuel and heat diffuse using the same mechanisms. And for most fuels, actually, the Lewis number of the fuel is really not far from 1. You find values between 0.7, 1.2, etc. If you don't go to very complex hydrocarbons, this equation, this assumption is really reasonable. Why is it useful? Well, you see that if lambda over Cp is equal to rho d here, these two diffusion terms are the same, and we're going to be able to play games with that. So before doing that, The last thing I want to do, let's give them numbers. This one is called 1. This one is called 2. We can integrate 1 and 2 between minus infinity, state 1, and plus infinity, which is state 2. So in our flame, it means we are going to go from state 1 here to state 2 here. This is the temperature. I'm going to plot the fuel mass fraction. The fuel mass fraction will look like this. So this is fuel mass fraction. Even before we integrate the equation point by point, we could integrate them from this point to this point. If you do that, it's actually a very simple result, which I'm going to plot here. So you take this equation, you put an integral in front of it, okay? Rho u is a constant. It's always equal to rho 1 SL, so it goes out of the integral. Rho 1 SL. Well, the integral of dy f dx certainly is equal to yf, okay? It's not much between 1 and 2. This term here integrates also easily to give you that between 1 and 2. And here you are left with integral of omega dot f dx, which we will call the total reaction rate. Not too difficult, huh? This term here is the gradient of fuel at infinity minus the gradient of fuel at minus infinity. Well, the profiles here are flat. There is no gradient. So this thing is going to be 0. And this thing is yf2 is 0. So you are left only with minus rho 1 SL yf1 equal omega dot f. It's not a big surprise if you think about it. It's what is this quantity here? Rho 1 SL multiplied by yf is the mass flux of fuel entering the flame. And this quantity here is the flux of fuel burning in the flame. So obviously they have to be equal. What this equation is telling us is that all the fuel which enters our domain has to burn through the flame because no fuel is left after us. That's a rather clear equation. For temperature, you do the same thing. You obtain rho 1 SL Cp T2 minus T1, the temperature difference between fresh and burned gases. So here you get T2, here you get T1. I hope there's no fire somewhere. This term, same thing, the gradients are 0, so this term goes to 0, and you are left with minus q integral of omega dot f dx, or minus q omega dot f big F. Same thing. What does this thing tell you? It tells you that if you have a heat release here, the temperature goes from T1 to T2. This heat release is due to the fuel which has burned. It goes both ways. So you can eliminate omega dot f between these two equations. So you see a lot of things are going away. Rho 1 SL goes away. You are left with Cp T2 minus T1 equal Q yf1. In other words, T2 will be equal to T1 plus Q yf1 over Cp. Okay, so without solving actually these equations, you see that we can right away say what the temperature will be in the burn gases, very far from the flame front here. It has to be equal to the fresh gases temperature plus the heat released by combustion. Okay? So next time, I will finish this demonstration. hopefully, and show you how to find the complete profiles of temperature. Just to attract your attention, because you didn't see it, but I just want to mention that from the beginning I've told you that we had now two unknowns, yf and t. I still haven't told you what the flame speed was. Okay, this is a specific aspect of these mathematical problems. It's an eigenvalue problem. The eigenvalue here is the flame speed itself. I have always said, let's sit in the reference frame of the flame. So I've been assuming I knew the flame speed, but I don't know the flame speed. So the flame speed, somehow, we must also get it out of this resolution. Otherwise, we miss something. This is what I will do next time, so it will be next week. Thanks.